Welcome back, fellow Common fans. This is our first time recording since the Iowa game recap, and we are bouncing back like all good Nebraska fans to embrace the offseason. It is transfer portal season, recruiting season, college football playoff controversy season, and before we know it, there will be winter workouts, spring football, and by the middle of 2024, we'll all have talked ourselves into the Huskers winning the new Big Ten. I am TJ Burkle alongside Matty Owens Sr. and Geoff in Lincoln, and we are joined by a very special guest today. He has been at the Omaha World Herald since 1991. As stated on the World Herald website, he's covered just about anything you can imagine. He's the author of multiple books, and some might say at the present moment, he is the godfather of the Nebraska media press or the Nebraska press corps. It is truly an honor to have Tom Shatel as our guest today. Tom, thanks so much for joining the Common fans.
Hey, this is fun. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor. It's an honor to have you. So, do things slow down for you once football season ends? Like, do you get a little break here, or do you just go from one thing to the next?
No, we got volleyball this week. We had Creighton, Nebraska basketball last week, and I do a lot of Creighton stuff. Of course, the Creighton fans would say I don't do nearly enough, but yeah, it just goes one thing goes in, one thing goes into the other, and it's I don't. I'm the one person on the staff who doesn't have an off season, so and that's fine. I really enjoy going from one to the other. So I guess you could say the spring is a little bit of an off season, but yeah, it's great. I love being busy. I love writing.
Job security.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Hey, Tom, before we want to get into a bunch of Husker football stuff with you, but before we go too far, I don't know if you remember this. We're over 20 years ago, but it was a highlight of my senior year of high school. We were all 2001 Pius guys. And one of your highlights recapping the 2001 state basketball tournament was the Pius X co-ed kick line. We had a few of us guys, Jeff and I were included in that, did a little dance number with the drill team. And I think it was in Tom's Takes or something like that. We got a little shout out from Tom Shatel. And TJ wasn't part of it. He was on the basketball team that was losing to Alliance and Tony Wilbrand. But that's one of Jeff and I's claims to fame is we got a little shout out from you. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but I love it.
It's a long time ago, Tom.
Yeah. Listen, I'm glad that was such an enjoyable experience for you guys. I was getting my ass kicked by Alliance that night, but I was on the actual team that played the game. But no, that was definitely a highlight for the Pie High crew from 2001.
Sure.
So pivoting to Husker football, Tom, you said in your column after the Iowa game, I'll quote you here, quote, "You may not want to hear it now, but this was a good year for Nebraska. The infrastructure of the program needed to be rebuilt, the work ethic, the expectations, how they do things on a daily basis." And then you went on to say, "This team plays hard and physical, more so than it has in a long time. And you had one of the top defenses in the Big Ten. Special teams were better. That's a good start. There's a lot of work still to be done," unquote. I think we've shared a lot of similar statements on this podcast in that, we see tangible signs of progress. We believe in Matt Rule, but boy, it's hard to swallow losing 4 in a row, to end the season, missing a bowl game once again. In your opinion, thumbs up or thumbs down, was this a successful year for the Huskers?
Yeah, I think it was, but I don't think we'll know just how good it was until next season. Because a lot of things they laid the groundwork for the future this year, and that's what it was always going to be. I wrote earlier this, and I've been really fascinated by this whole thing. I've never seen the program get built up. We've always had, here comes Bill Callahan. He's going to do. He wasn't building. He was trying to win with his offense, and he brought players in, and then you had Pelini. I mean, on and on. Nobody tried to build the program to where they were fundamentally sound. They had an offensive line. I think probably Bo had the best approach, but it was never going to get over the hump, and it had cracks in the foundation by the end of his regime, his end of his era. They were barely winning 9. They had losses that were really really big. So I just think it's fascinating to watch. This is what Bob Devaney did in some ways. Now, will it be like Devaney? Probably not. I don't know. Yeah, but it's just fun to watch them go back to the basics, and it's like building a house. And I wasn't a house. I guess it was a townhouse or a condo or a duplex. It was a duplex, I guess. I had one of those built many years ago, and I always drove by every day to see if there was progress. And sure enough, there's never progress. Those guys don't work every day, and the builder, you can't get a hold of the guy, and it seems to just take forever. And they can't get electricians, or they can't get this, or they can't get that. So it's supposed to be on time, but it's not, and it's frustrating. But I kind of compare this to that, and that everybody's watching these guys build every week, and they want progress. But I think we got some. But yeah, they didn't beat Iowa. They didn't beat Wisconsin. The last 4 games were right there. A lot of people are still going to measure Nebraska football by the record, and as they should.
Sure.
But we've got to be honest with ourselves here. The reality is there's a lot of problems. This program has been doing a lot of things wrong, and needed to be built from the bottom up. So that there was that part of the season where I was watching the progress, and every Monday press conference we'd get an update from the builder, Matt Rule. Here's where we are. Here's what we're trying to teach these guys this week. I just found that fascinating. The other part of the season was the winning and losing, and I tried to be nice about this, and because these guys are trying hard, they didn't have a lot of talent. Offensively, they didn't have any playmakers. The quarterbacks just weren't very good, and the running backs were okay. Receivers didn't have a lot of them. Offensive line played better, but they need people. They need speed. They need guys. They need dudes. That's the latest term in college sports. Dudes. Guys that can play. And Nebraska always had dudes, right?
Yep.
And they stopped getting dudes.
All except studs as well. Studs is a good one.
I just think it's you got to lay the foundation. You got to pour the cement, the concrete, and kind of build up. I think that's what they've been doing. But it can go pretty fast, I've seen some of these where the first year coach came in and everything clicked and they won big with other guys' players. But in this case, didn't have a lot of players. So it was, you're trying, I love Harburg, but he's not very accurate. And he's such a gamer and a warrior. He's a guy that you can really, cheer for. They got as much out of him as they could, running the ball. I thought that was a smart move. In the middle of the season, I got him 3 straight wins, putting the ball in his hands and letting him run. And he had a couple passes, but they just on offense they've just been trying to get by every week and without a lot of playmakers. And but the defense was a big reason for that. And they didn't have a lot of great dudes on defense either, but they had enough. But what I was interested in is Ty Robinson came to Nebraska as a dude, as a big time player, and hadn't really matched what he was supposed to be, but he did this year.
Yeah,
He got coached up, and the right defense. That defense should give everybody hope, and I think that's going to happen on offense. I'm not sold on Satterfield, but he didn't have a lot to work with. So anyway,
Tom, that kind of brings me to a question I had for you. And that's a great analogy about the builder. The only thing is that we have instant access to Matt Rule, but in my experience, I can never get a builder or a contractor on the phone to save my life.
Agree.
But in regards to the offense, I mean, obviously they've left a lot to be desired. Whether you want to argue that, Marcus Satterfield might not be the guy, or obviously a change in quarterback or the offensive line. Do you have any idea or your thoughts on what you think Matt Rule's vision or almost identity is for this offense long term, give or take?
Yeah, he keeps saying he wants to run the ball and be a power-based offensive line and really control the game that way. And everybody's ears perked up. That's everybody applauded, and that's what we want to see. I just don't think they had the running backs or the line to do that. And I think he was trying to feel out the Big Ten. Okay, I think he got a good glimpse of what you need to do. It'd be harder to do than just saying it. So, so that's what we want to see going forward. Okay, when you get the players, will you be this guy that you say you're going to be? You're going to run the ball. So I think Satterfield is a throw the ball guy.
Yep.
I'm not saying he's Bill Callahan or anything, but he's going to throw it. And that Maryland game, Rule said he told Satterfield beginning of the drive with Chuba in there, go win the game. And I think that's great, but I think you can build the program and manage wins at the same time. That's the thing. Okay, we're trying to teach our players to go for it. Well, going forward can also be running the ball and setting up a field goal and then taking your chances going to overtime. I mean, at some point, you owe your players and you owe your fans victory. And that has to take a place next to, okay, we're always attacking, we're building a mentality here. Well, the mentality has to be, we're also trying to win the game. So, it's hard to blame the players. Chuba did what he thought was, he threw the pass where the ball was going to be, where he thought the receiver was going to be, and the receiver wasn't there. They're still learning how to run the routes and do the rubs and all this stuff. And get that the Maryland guy made a good play, and it's just frustrating. But
gosh, we talked about that multiple times where I couldn't stand the argument of, well, we appreciate that he went to go win the game. Kicking the field goal and putting your excellent defense on the field with the lead with under 4 minutes to go is trying to win the game, especially when you have first and goal at the 5. So that one gets the blood flowing. That actually brings up an interesting question. You said it. Coach Rule has talked about, he wants to win the fourth quarter. He wants to be a run first team. He's picked Coach Osborne's brain. He wants to learn how to focus on winning games in the Midwest in November when it's cold and windy and rainy. Do you think, we agree with you? I mean, it never felt like there was much of a flow. One series, Emmett Johnson would pop a few runs and look good, and then suddenly whoever's playing quarterback is doing 3 straight dropbacks or something. Do you think the $1.4 million man, Marcus Satterfield, is aligned with where Coach Rule is? Or do you what do you think is the disconnect there?
Yeah, I really cut him a break this year because he didn't have the players. But you're right, and we all noticed that. If things are working, don't go away from them. That's college football. That's just basic college football. That I'm going to run this play until you prove you can stop it. I mean, that's how Tom Osborne won a lot of those 255. People couldn't stop it. The old Barry Switzer line. They said, well, somebody accused him of spying on Nebraska. And he said, spying? Well, why would I spy on them? I know what they're going to run every play. I just can't stop it. And that's how the Big 8 felt about Nebraska. They couldn't stop it. Well, that's what the Big Ten is like that too. But it's it's just I'm so tired of these. Every offensive coordinator I've ever seen has to be the smartest guy in the room, and I'm gonna show them how smart I am, and I'm gonna keep them off balance, and they think I'm gonna run it, but I'm gonna throw it. Well, it drives me nuts. So, that's what we had this year, and so I'm giving him a break, but I'm worried a little bit that it's not going to be. We're going to pound it all the time. We've got this, but you know what? If they get the quarterbacks and receivers in there who can do it, maybe Daniel Kalen's that kind of guy. Maybe they go find one. Maybe they start completing passes. Maybe we're not as upset. Maybe
We did.
if they score touchdowns on the air and they win games. Okay, I guess I can live with that. But it's just hard this year because they didn't have the players, and when things were working, you wanted them to stick with it.
Right. We had former Husker Matt Verzal on with us for our game recap. Was that Michigan State guys or Maryland?
Yeah, it was Michigan State.
Mm-hmm. And he made this. He said every offensive coordinator wants to show how big their brain is, and and so we said if we ever get Common Fan podcast T-shirts, the first one is going to say, "Don't go big brained, just run the ball."
Yep.
Yeah, I remember our old buddy Sean Watson years ago with Callahan and early years of Bo. I remember him telling me one time that the sort of formula he went with on calling plays was the game Where's Waldo, and you basically the defense, you find the open man, you find the open guy. They can't cover everybody. You set the plays up so somebody's always open, and then you got to find that guy. And I was just shaking my head, going, "I'll tell you where Waldo is. He's that big fullback you got, or his name is Mike Rozier or Amon Green or Kenny Clark, and he's coming at you with 200 pounds of muscle, and I just love one of my all-time favorite stories was the '94 K-State game. We're in Manhattan. This is the year K-State fans think they're going to get him, and Matt Turman is the quarterback, and
the Terminator.
Lawrence Phillips has got a bad thumb. Of course, that it didn't mean he still couldn't run, but the offensive line down there basically told the team in the locker room, "We got it." And then not only did they say we got it, but Zach Wiegert, my all-time favorite move is telling the K-State players what's coming. He goes, we're running over here. We're coming this way. And they're like, "Are you kidding me?" And then they finally figured out he was telling the truth. And they still couldn't stop it. That's the ultimate to me, was that I'm telling you where it's going and I'm daring you to stop it. And they couldn't do it.
No.
And I just love that. And that's Nebraska offense to me. We know where we're going. You know where we're going. You can't do anything about it.
Right. Try and stop it.
Love that.
Well, Tom, we quoted you after the Maryland game as saying Coach Rule was going to need to reevaluate, his offensive scheme, his offensive staff in the offseason. It's clear the $1.4 million man, Marcus Satterfield, isn't going anywhere. But what are some other possible shakeups that we might see on the offensive side? Is there going to be any changes there?
I just think players, they got to get. I think the offensive line could grow and be better. Another year of the same offensive line coach and scheme has to help. Continuity is so important on offense. It's just so important. And, getting guys who can, hold on to the ball and not throw interceptions.
Yeah.
And people have said, well, that's coaching. And I say, at some point, yeah, but every coach coaches his players to not turn it over. They all do the same things. to me, turnovers is talent. It's players. And they're not trying to turn it over. Some guys just don't hold on to the ball. They don't take care of it. How many times did you ever see, it might be a bad example, but how many times do you ever remember Tommy Frazier throwing an interception, or Crouch, or Zach
Or
Taylor?
fumbling. Yeah.
My favorite guy, maybe Joe Gans. I mean, I love Joe Gans. Took care of the ball and got it where it was supposed to go. And that's what they need. They need guys, they need more talent, and they need better players who will, better players have a way of scoring touchdowns, not making turnovers. Now, that isn't always true, but most of the time it is. And so right now, I don't think he's going to change any assistants. I think he's going to keep it a year. Now, maybe in January, things will show differently, but I think he's going to give it another year. He said that a couple of times when it was brought up this season. I'm not going to, change my coordinator. I'm not going to just throw it away after 1 year. And this is a guy who builds and develops. And part of developing is being patient and waiting to see what happens. Expecting it to improve. So I think that's how he treats his staff too. Now we'll see. Is Raiola the guy? They weren't better. They got to get better. Garrett McGuire, what's his deal? I mean, the receivers weren't a big factor, but you got the young guys coming up. They got better. So is he going to get better? Is that position going to get better? I'd like to see Thomas Fidone get involved more. I don't know if that was the quarterback didn't see him or because the defense took him away. So I was encouraged by Chuba. I really was. I really thought when he wasn't running for his life in the Iowa defensive line, I thought he played pretty well the last couple of games. He's got a little stuff in there that he sees it and he sees something open and he can make a play. But we got to see some more there. And that last interception was he's got to learn, not to do that. And so I don't know. I think we'll see the same staff. It'll be interesting if I'm waiting to see the portal. Do they get another running back? They're going to get the two guys back from who got hurt, Irvin and Ramir. I think that they could still get a better running back, a higher level guy, and then use them.
Right.
Hanging under the ball. But receivers, is there another guy out there? Quarterback, what are they going to do? They just talked with Will Howard at K-State, who's a solid guy, and isn't gonna turn it over too much, if at all. So I think it'll be players right now, but I think coaches after next season. So
okay. Well, thinking about Satterfield coming back for another year is fodder for post or off-season nightmares for Husker fans. But transitioning to the other side of the ball, the Huskers end the year at number 13 nationally in total defense, number 16 in scoring defense, number 7 in rushing defense. We could go on and on. Hearing these stats is like Marvin Gaye for Husker fans. How does Tony White show up in year one and turn this unit into the best Husker defense we've seen in probably over a decade?
He's good. He's real good. And he got those guys. I mean, just the level of attention to detail. I mean, I don't remember too many times them getting beat one-on-one. I mean, on the edge when it came to the guy throwing a pass or somebody breaking it free in the open, they usually brought the man down, and that's kind of how I view defense. Are you pursuing the ball, and are you bringing the man down? And they did both of that. They were just relentless, and it just seemed like they never took a play off. They were always going after the ball, and they're not just a couple of guys, but 4, 5, or 6 guys were after that ball. And so that's coaching. But defense is pretty easy. You know, again, your job is to go beat your man and go find the ball, and bring it down. And there were a few breakdowns. You know, Wisconsin hit some passes. Maryland hit some passes. That's going to happen. I felt like they needed to sack the Maryland quarterback whose name I can't pronounce. I apologize. I can't pronounce his brother's name. But they needed to grow. He got sacked the week before several times. I thought Nebraska was going to get him. They really didn't. So they weren't perfect, but they were there every week pretty much. And I just think it's coaching. It's technique, but it's also, you know, let's be a talent too. I mean, the polar bear and Ty Robinson were men this year, and hadn't really seen a lot of that. And just for them to break out, you know, it's like I said, sometimes a first year coach, first year coordinator, some things click. Well, they definitely clicked on defense.
Yeah. To your point too, like, I don't know what you know about the inner workings of the university and how compensation is divvied up, but you know, we got to throw as much money as you can at Tony White, and obviously he's getting a raise, but is there any way we can siphon some of those dollars from Satterfield's salary to Tony White to compensate him further to keep him as long as we can? Is that allowed? I'm just not sure how that works.
Well, I don't either. I mean, I think they've got enough money to pay those guys each $2 million a year if they wanted to, but I don't really care about money. I don't worry about it. I don't, you know, to me, it's just funny money. That's more money than I'll ever see.
Right.
And it's what they'd get. Those guys don't really ask for it. I mean, coaches, whether it's basketball or football or anybody, and these guys walk around in sweats. They walk around in sweats. They wear the official logo, golf shirt, or jacket, which they get for free. Most of them drive a car that they get for free. The head coaches usually live in a house that somebody bought for them. I mean, it's they don't need. They get all this money, but I never see anybody spend it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, they're just there to coach, and of course their agents love to make money for them. You know, there's no question about that. But both these guys are just ball coaches who just want to coach. So I don't really worry about the money part of it. But yeah, you got to. I thought that with White, I don't think White is about money. He must be a head coach.
Yeah.
And I think if San Diego State had offered him or Syracuse had offered him, well, he was going to go because he wanted to be a head coach. It wasn't about money. So, of course, he would have got paid more. But, you know, USC made a run at him for coordinator. And, you know, he might have seen that as a better opportunity maybe a year or two ago. Right now, I think USC is kind of radioactive. And
yes.
I think Lincoln Riley is radioactive. I don't think their new AD is very amused by the way he handles things. You know, the USC head coach has to be a certain type of coach. They have to embrace the Hollywood, the lights, the big city, and he has to be a certain character in that sports town. And you can't shun the media. You can't do all these weird things. So I think that's a place where that might be the job might be open on the earth. So maybe that wasn't the place he wanted to go. But so I don't really think Tony White's chasing money. I think he's looking at opportunities. And you know, let's face it, they didn't go to a bowl game this year. They did a nice job, but he's not.
True too.
He's a lot more marketable if Nebraska goes to a bowl game. The lights can be shining bright on Rule and his staff. So that could happen next year. It should happen next year. It should.
Right.
You mentioned sweats. Oh, sorry, Matt. I was just going to say, you mentioned sweats. I long for the days of a coach just wearing a nice suit and tie on the sidelines. You're probably old school like that, Tom. I miss those days. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I haven't seen many of those guys lately. I always loved some of the SEC coaches used to wear the bold striped ties with the school colors and
Right.
have a
Yep.
baseball hat with a tie. I never understood that, but that was sort of an SEC thing.
Yep.
Yeah, Bob Devaney was kind of a fashion plate guy. The nice camel overcoat and the tie and coat and the little hat. I love those hats. Wish they still sold those red
Loved it.
hats with the feather.
The fedora, yeah.
You
Loved
know,
it.
yeah, the fedora. So, and then Tom came along, and Tom's hat was the headphones with the Osborne.
Yep.
That
Oh,
was
yeah.
I can't remember what they used
Iconic
to
look.
called the little piece of tape with his name on it. There's had a certain name to the kind of tape, but it was Osborne on that headset. So it's and he was wearing the red pants. People used to love the red pants. So yeah, I miss that a little bit, but it's so people, other writers used to make fun of Bo Pelini. He said he was like a truck driver. And so, no offense to truck drivers out there, I love you guys. Just don't run me off the road. But he looked like he has this hat that was pulled down and a gray sweatshirt. So that was Bo. But I got some Bo stories too if you want them.
Oh my gosh. I think Matt has a quick question for you. And then yes,
Yep.
I would love a Bo story.
Love them.
Yep. Tom, we kind of mentioned that especially on the defense, so we had pretty good amount of success without the dudes or to quote Barry Switzer, the Jimmies and the Joes. We didn't have a Sue or a Levante David, like a multi-year Pro Bowl type guys. But you mentioned the emergence of Ty Robinson and Nash, the polar bear, and those guys turning into kind of elite, really, defensive linemen. I'm a defensive lineman, by heart, and I love those guys. They can make or break your defense. So for me, having Tony White back is huge, but almost to me, almost as equally important is having those two guys coming back and anchoring that defense. Do you kind of feel the same way that having those two guys kind of have the year that they had and having them returning and arguably, I'd even say they might be our best shot at having, a top 3-4 round draft pick here in the next couple of years. I don't think there's anybody from this year's team that's going to go that high, but those two guys might.
Yeah, when I was at the press conference when Ty Robinson came in and announced he was coming back, my mind immediately went back to 1990, end of 96, 97.
Yes.
When Grant Wistrom and Jason Peter both said, we're coming back. They did it together. They did it as a team, sort of a two-man. They were good friends, and they did it. They made it a statement that sort of like, this is going to be our team. We're back, and we've got unfinished business, and it was a very powerful thing. Now, I'm not comparing Ty to Grant or Jason, but he's certainly of that caliber. He really is. And somebody else made the comment when I made that comment. Well, it's a little bit like Ndamukong Suh after the 2008 season. I remember the Nebraska beat Clemson and Dabo in the Gator Bowl, and that was a Joe Gans special with Nate Swift and Todd Peterson.
Yep.
Whatever happened to guys like that? I love those guys.
Yeah.
But I remember going back to the Marriott that night, and I saw. I mean, the team spent an extra night. Somehow I got into the team hotel. It was like a resort with a golf course. I always tried to scam my way into whatever I could, but but we're down in the lobby after the game, and it's like 10:30 or 11. And here comes Sue and another player, and they sat with Bo and Carl Pelini for a while. I'm sure they were talking about next year, but it was just interesting that, again, I'm not going to compare Ty to Ndamukong Suh, but again, he's that he's an All-American caliber guy, whoever you want to compare him to. So, yes, I think this is a big, big deal that he and Nash. I can't call him the Bear for him. He doesn't have a name, but I do like the Bear name better. But those two guys that's incredibly big, and they don't have the cachet yet, but they think they can. But having those kind of leaders and that kind of statement, and I know the portals just opened up, but I didn't see a bunch of guys rushing out from Lincoln.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody rushing out. One guy jumped in yesterday. Now there may be more, but I think this is a place where people are going to want to be for a while. And that was going to be interesting to me was, okay, Matt Rule wants to build a culture and a place where people want to stay. Well, in this day and age, nobody wants to stay. They all want to leave. Can he get guys to stay? And, I know you don't want to hear the name Creighton, but
No.
Rule is trying to build, Greg McDermott has built at Creighton, and it's a culture where people don't want to leave. They want to stay. Now, they had two guys leave last year. That was because of money, chasing the NBA. You're going to get that once in a while, but they really built a place where, and they have the good NIL, and I think that's what Rule is going to build. He's going to get that NIL thing. They got to get that figured out, and they are. But I think he's going to build a place where people want to stay. So, but yeah, I thought that was huge. Will it be national championship like Noah's 97? No, but it should be a bowl game, and it should be. I think. I mean, I'm not going to predict anything, but I think 7 or 8 wins is on the table next year, given the right quarterback.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Tom, we want to be respectful of your time, but it's funny you mentioned the Pelini stories because our last note.
I can keep going. I'll keep going.
Okay. Well, we wanted to make sure to have a little time to ask you about, maybe favorite memories of covering a Husker game or season, but also we specifically put a note in there about funny Pelini stories. So let's go there. I would love to hear a Bo story or two, if you're willing and able to share.
All right, I got a couple.
Okay.
You remember the 2013 season? They lose to UCLA at home, and Tommy Frazier says, I think they should fire this guy, and blah blah blah. And then there comes out the audio of Bo cussing people. That was a radio interview that wasn't supposed to be released. Well, one of his enemies, and he had a few, released it. It became a big national story.
Yep.
And so he says, bleep, Tom Shatel, bleep this, yelling at Dirk and all this stuff. Hold on, I gotta call this thing up here. Wait a minute. I don't know if you can see this or not. This is there's a guy in Lincoln who does T-shirts. He goes, I can't remember his name. I think it's Justin or Jared. He'll kill me for not knowing, but he goes by a Triple B.
Oh yeah, Josh.
Yeah, sure. Triple B. Yeah.
Triple B printing.
Yeah.
Well, he did a great T-shirt, and I don't know if you can see this.
I can.
Okay, it's a classic, and I saw it on Twitter. Somebody was trying to get me all fired up. I said, hey, I love that. I got hold of the guy. I followed him on Twitter, and I send him a DM, and I said, hey, I gotta have that T-shirt. And he goes, you want one of these? I said, hell yes, I want it. And so my wife wanted a bunch of my golf shirts. Well, we got like 20 of those shirts.
Oh,
so
great.
For common fans who are listening and can't see, it was a T-shirt that basically said "bleep Tom Shatel," and there were a couple letters that were replaced with characters, but you get the idea.
It's got Bo's face on it.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see.
Oh,
that.
Here we go.
Let's see.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Right
God.
where the C should be.
Right
you
where
know?
the C would
Beautiful.
Yeah, Bo.
Beautiful.
It's a classic, right?
We
Yep.
need to get those for the show, guys.
I know we do. And,
No, we
So-
like Tom too much. We don't
Well,
want
we
to be
like Tom.
rocking this.
well, thank you. But a year later, hell, it may have been that year. It was when he had the meltdown after the Iowa game, and he dared Eichhorst to fire him, basically.
So that was the end of 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the regents came in and said, no, you're not firing anybody. We're not doing on that again. And so Eichhorst couldn't do what he was hired to do by Perlman. But in any case, so I'm with the Gator Bowl, and then and they won. I think Tommy Armstrong threw the long pass to Quincy and Iowa, and
Yep.
they beat Georgia. And so we did the post game interviews. I wanted to see Bo some more, so I snuck into the locker room, and most players were gone. And they had an office for the head coach and the coaches. So I went into that office, and there was Bo getting dressed. So I go in there, and I say, hey, we start talking about the game and all this stuff. I said, oh, by the way, and I get out the camera or the phone, and I show him that T-shirt. I said, I said, have you seen this? This is pretty funny. And he looks at the T-shirt and he goes, what is that? I go, oh, some guy in Lincoln made some T-shirts. People love them. It's funny. My wife has them. It's great. And he goes, when did I say that? I'm going, oh,
no.
come on, Bo. You can't BS a BSer. Yeah, you know. But, and then there was
Beautiful.
another time. He disagreed with something I wrote, and he called me up. This was in January after the bowl, and we start talking, and Tom, you know me, I would never do that, or blah 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 blah. And yeah, I said, Bo, but I think in this case, I had to call you out on this for that, and so he starts getting wound up, and he starts screaming at me. We're on cell phones, right? I'm driving around Omaha, and he's like screaming at me. He's cussing and he's going nuts, and it's like Jerry Faust. He's in this throaty voice. I can never, hoarse, can never understand what he's saying. And it's like I pull into Hy-Vees. I had to get some stuff for, home, and I said, Bo, if you want to have a conversation like an adult, call me back. But I hung up on it. I really hung up on the head coach. I just wow, keep going like
Love
that. It was just crazy. So I go in, I get the stuff. I come back to and he's got the, I look at my phone, and it's got like 10 phone calls from Bo. He kept calling and calling to call me back. So next time he called, I picked up, and he said, Tom, I'm so sorry about that. And it was just like, that's Bo. He would
Wow.
0
do
to
that
16.
thing that you saw on the sidelines,
Yeah.
where he would just get wound up and go, and then he would immediately become the other guy. And we talked for like 40 minutes on the phone about where the program was going. So it was this guy and it was that guy, and then that's what you had.
Wow.
Wow.
Crazy.
Amazing.
I think
That's
maybe
awesome.
you saw that in some of his teams as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I dare say.
Night and day.
I mean, there was a lot to like about what they did.
You bet.
And I think he said it to me one time, I just wear people out. I just, he knew it.
Yeah.
And so, it's been a crazy, crazy time. And I think about those early days, and just how spoiled I was, especially. I thought it would last forever. And when they fired Solich, I thought, well, they'll just bring somebody else in here. It's Nebraska. They're always going to win. And I wish I could go back and rewrite a lot of that stuff, because knowing what made it work. Because we've seen the last 20 years what makes it what what makes it not work.
Right.
And
Right.
I took for granted the culture, the offensive line play, the fundamentals, the discipline.
Yep.
You know, we used to make fun of them when I covered the Big Eight in the 80s in Kansas City. We used to make fun of Nebraska in Osborne. We call them robots. And it was like coming to, the Russian front, everything was cold and they didn't want to talk to you, and they were clinical, and they would destroy you, and they were muscle and physical, and they would just, they were ruthless, and they didn't make mistakes. And everybody loved Oklahoma. The Barry Switzer would let you in the locker room. I went in the Oklahoma locker room one time, and he's talking to some guys, and Switzer looks at me and goes, "Hey, Tom, meet Earth, Wind, and Fire." It's like Earth, Wind, and Fire in the locker room talking to Switzer. I met Earth, Wind, and Fire in the Oklahoma locker room.
That's
He
incredible.
goes, "What do you need?"
That's awesome.
I was trying to find Jamel Hallway. Where is he? Oh, he's over there. Okay, thanks. But that was Oklahoma. You went to Oklahoma. You went out to eat and drink. The head coach was there. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, you come to Nebraska, everything was hard to do, and they didn't, want you talking to certain players, and it just was a different feel. But I just had to laugh about that when Nebraska joined the Big Ten, and every Big Ten team was more like Nebraska than Nebraska was. And Nebraska was kind of sloppy and all over the place, and these Big Ten teams would just pound. We take advantage. We're boring. We do all this stuff, but Nebraska was boring and disciplined and physical and dominant with great players.
Yep.
And again, the Big Ten doesn't usually have those kind of guys. So it was but I just thinking back to those days where we had access to one of the greatest dynasties of all time. Me and Lee Barfnick would come to practice, Eric Olson from the World Herald, Ken Hamilton, the Journal Star. And that was kind of it. And then practice was open. And, or sometimes they would close it, and you get to we didn't get to watch the last half hour, but we had everything better to do ourselves. I mean, remember Jason Peter, giving some freshman crap on the way off the sidelines and doing, you just saw the team at its best. They're doing what they're doing, and I just think, well, it's a different world now. We get about 30 to 35 people in media every day, and everything's a press conference now. You don't get to really talk to the coaches or the players. Yeah. I mean, I used to drink beer with Milt Tenopir and Charlie McBride. You can never do that now. You can never meet them at Barry's. You can never meet Danny Nee at Barry's anymore. People would be taking pictures and all this stuff, and it's a different world.
Did I read once? Did Vandy used to offer you a drink when you go into his office?
Oh yeah, he'd have a little thing behind the desk. Yeah, he'd have the cancer or some kind of deal. I mean, I walked into a bar in the old market one Friday night, and I saw Devaney at the bar. I mean, just in the middle of the bar, just being Bob Devaney. You could never do that now, never. No. So, those days were better. They were, and I hate to say that, but they were. It was a great time to be a sports writer because you could really talk to people. I mean, I loved it. I did a thing on the 1970 team and what it was like to cover that team. And Tom Ash, a famous sports writer for the World Herald, told me he used to go into the sauna with the coaches, and the coach invited him into the locker room, and he used to go to the sauna. I mean, that's imagine that.
Yeah,
right. That's so that's it's just such a different world. And anyway, I'm way off track.
No,
we love it. We love it.
your lips to God's ears. I think you just summed up how every Husker fan feels that was, remembers the 90s and was around for the last 20 or 25 years. So, Tom, we've taken more than enough of your time. We cannot thank you enough for joining the Common Fans today. This has just been incredible insight on the current team, and absolutely love the memories and the stories from all that you've seen and covered. So, thank you so much, Matt. Jeff, any final words?
Just really appreciate it. Really appreciate it,
Yeah.
Tom. That's great.
Yeah, story time with Shatel is going to be hopefully a recurring segment if you're open to it. So
I got a million.
thank you so much.
Bring me back. I got more.
Love it.
Excellent.
Love it. Thanks so much, Tom. As always, Common Fans, GBR for life.
Thanks, guys.